The camera fades in on a bustling cityscape illuminated by the glow of skyscrapers. The sun setting behind them, casting long shadows on the streets below. The ambient sounds of honking cars and distant chatter fill the air, setting the scene for our story, a tale of ambition, morality, and the pursuit of justice. As the frame tightens, we find ourselves in a small but dedicated law office, where a young lawyer named Alex Harris is hunched over his desk, reviewing case files. The office is a reflection of his ambitions, modest yet filled with the energy of a dreamer determined to make a mark in the legal world. Alex's eyes sparkle with hope and determination. But underneath that enthusiasm lies a daunting awareness of the challenges he faces in a system rife with inequality. One fateful afternoon, Alex's phone buzzes, breaking the silence. The name Emily Foster appears on the screen, his mentor. A seasoned attorney known for her unwavering principles and remarkable achievements. Anticipation builds as he answers the call. Emily informs him of a high-profile case that just landed in their court, Victor Langston, a wealthy businessman accused of embezzling millions of dollars from a charitable organization. As Alex hangs up, a mix of excitement and trepidation washes over him. This case could be the breakthrough he desperately needs to establish his reputation. Yet he knows all too well the intricacies and dangers that accompany such high-stakes battles. He recalls Emily's words, reminding him that justice isn't merely about winning, it's about integrity and the weight of moral responsibility. Determined to take on the challenge, Alex begins to research Victor Langston. The more he learns, the more unsettling the story becomes. Victor's charm easily masked a tangled web of deceit and manipulation. Shivers run down his spine as he thinks of the power and privilege Victor wields, a stark contrast to Alex's own humble beginnings. With a renewed sense of purpose, Alex grabs his coat and heads out, each step igniting his resolve. Little does he know, this case will not only test his abilities as a lawyer but also push him to confront the very essence of right and wrong in a world where justice is often eclipsed by wealth. And so, with fate set in motion, Alex embarks on a journey that will change his life forever, where the lines between justice and injustice blur, and the struggle for truth begins. As the sun dipped below the skyline of the bustling city, casting an orange hue across the glass buildings, Alex Harris sat at his cluttered desk, his heart pounding with anticipation. The silence of the late evening was broken only by the persistent ringing of his phone, echoing through the room like a herald of change. With a deep breath, he picked up the receiver, his mind racing with possibilities. Little did he know, this call would change the course of his fledgling legal career forever. "Alex? It's Emily," came the familiar voice on the other end, brimming with excitement. "I just got off a call with Victor Langston's team. They need a fresh face to represent him. And I thought of you. Are you ready to step into the spotlight?" As the name Victor Langston reverberated in his head, Alex felt a mix of awe and trepidation. Langston was a billionaire with a reputation that loomed large over the corporate world. Known for his charm, cunning business dealings, and, most recently, his alleged embezzlement of millions from his own company. This was not just any case, it was the opportunity Alex had been waiting for, an opportunity to prove himself on a grand stage. "Of course. I'm ready." He pounced with enthusiasm, thoughts swirling about the magnitude of such a high-profile case. But wait, what's the situation? There's a lot of complexities involved. Victor insists he's innocent, but the evidence is heavily stacked against him. We'll have to dig deep and navigate a challenging legal landscape, Emily explained. I know with your analytical mind and determination. You can handle it. Alex felt a rush of adrenaline as he began to imagine himself in the courtroom, standing tall against the forces of injustice. Yet, the excitement was laced with a gnawing uncertainty. He had always dreamed of fighting cases where the truth would shine. But this felt like wading into murky waters. What if Victor wasn't the innocent man he claimed to be? Remember, Alex? Emily's voice broke through his thoughts, bringing him back to a clearer perspective. The law isn't just about winning. It's about seeking the truth. This case will challenge you in ways you can't anticipate. As the call ended, Alex gathered his thoughts and set out for the office. The anticipation of the upcoming case hung in the air, thick enough to touch. He pored over countless files regarding Victor Langston, each revealing a different facet of the man behind the money. Accusations flew from all sides, the intricacies of the financial world obscured by thinly veiled corruption. Over the next few days, Alex buried himself in research, losing track of time as he pieced together what seemed like a tangled web of deceit. The more he learned, the more he felt the weight of the system pressing down on him. Money was a king that ruled the courtroom, and the stakes were higher than he had ever imagined. In a moment of reflection, he realized that he wasn't just fighting for victory, he was fighting for the very essence of justice itself. The thought both thrilled and terrified him. On the day of the pre-trial meeting, Alex entered a grand conference room, a stark contrast to the faded walls of his modest office. Victor Langston stood at the head of the table, charismatic and confident, exuding an aura of affluence. As their eyes met, Alex felt a chill run down his spine. Here was a man who had turned ethical boundaries into suggestions. "Welcome, Alex," Victor said, his smile both warm and calculating. "I trust you're ready to help clear my name. The truth is, money can be both a tool and a weapon in this game we call justice." The weight of Victor's words settled heavily in the room, and Alex steeled himself. This wouldn't just be a trial, it was a profound moral test. With determination coursing through his veins, he knew that he wasn't just stepping into a courtroom, he was stepping into a battle where morality, privilege, and justice would collide, setting the stage for a fight far greater than himself. The journey ahead would not be easy. But Alex was ready to heed Emily's words: the truth must be unveiled, no matter the cost. As the trial proceeds into its second week, the atmosphere in the courtroom thickens with tension. The public has assembled, hungry for justice but confused by the dichotomy of the legal proceedings. Alex Harris stands at the defense table, his palms sweating against the hard surface of the polished wood. Across from him, Victor Langston, the defendant, sits with an air of casual arrogance, surrounded by his powerhouse legal team. This is not just any case, it's a spectacle that basks in the glow of money and influence. In the days leading up to the trial, Alex meticulously prepares his case, poring over financial documents, witness testimonies, and the mountain of evidence pointing to Victor's embezzlement. However, with every piece of evidence he uncovers, the contrast between Alex's humble upbringing and Victor's opulent lifestyle becomes more pronounced. Victor is used to getting what he wants, through charm, connections, and a pocketbook deep enough to intimidate any adversary. During one afternoon session, Alex listens to the cross-examination of a key witness, a former employee who, in hushed tones, explains how Victor had manipulated funds, siphoning money from the company's accounts. Yet, Victor's attorney, a cunning and experienced player, smoothly twists the narrative. Their performance is a masterclass in legal rhetoric, using every trick in the book to make the witness seem unreliable, desperate, and motivated by revenge. The jury, swayed by Victor's flashy defense and polished demeanor, appears increasingly skeptical. As he watches this unfold, Alex feels a pang of frustration. Here is a man who, despite his blatant wrongdoings, stands suave and untouchable. The irony stares him in the face, a legal system designed to uphold justice, hampered by economic disparities and personal connections that seem unbreakable. Alex recalls the stories his mentor Emily Foster told him, of cases where the truth was buried beneath layers of privilege. Suddenly, it feels as if those stories were not mere tales but declarations of war against an undeniable reality. On a quiet evening, Alex meets with Emily in her office. The weight of his dilemma hangs over him like a dark cloud. "It's not just about winning, Alex," she says, her voice steady yet filled with gravity. "It's about ensuring the truth sees the light of day. Don't let the system's flaws make you waver in your pursuit of what's right." Emily's words resonate deeply with Alex, igniting a flicker of determination within him. Yet, self-doubt still creeps in. Can he truly fight against a system that is so heavily influenced by wealth? The following day in court, as witness after witness testifies, Alex's resolve solidifies. He takes a stand, not just for the defendant or even the whistleblower but for everyone whose voice has been drowned out by the roar of the wealthy. He begins to formulate his strategy, focusing on the discrepancies that Victor's team glosses over, the intentional misrepresentation of facts, and the deliberate obfuscation of the truth. As Alex synthesizes this emerging strategy, a fierce spirit wells within him. He reflects that justice is a relentless pursuit, an uphill battle against formidable odds. The irony of wealth, while a heavy burden, also becomes a rallying cry. He sees how vital it is to expose Victor's manipulations, not merely for victory but to shine a light on the broader issues of class and privilege that plague society. This is more than just a job, it's a calling. With each passing day, Alex resolves to navigate these stormy waters, determined to bring truth to the forefront. And with that renewed vigor, he steps back into the courtroom, ready to confront the Goliath of injustice head-on. In the quaint, sunlit office of the law firm, where the walls were lined with books filled with legal precedents and case studies, Alex Harris sat across from his mentor, Emily Foster. The atmosphere was charged with tension, a reflection of the high stakes surrounding the Langston case. Emily, a veteran in the field with a reputation for her unwavering ethics, sensed the weight on Alex's shoulders. His brow was furrowed, and his hands fidgeted with the pen he had been twirling. "Alex," Emily began, her voice gentle yet forthright, "I know this case feels overwhelming. But remember, it's not just about winning, it's about upholding the principles of justice." Her keen blue eyes bore into his, urging him to find clarity amid the chaos. Alex sighed, running a hand through his hair. "But Emily, the evidence is stacked against us. Victor has the whole system behind him, money, power, influence. How can we possibly fight that?" Emily leaned back, folding her arms thoughtfully. "We fight it by staying true to our convictions. There will be times when it seems like the odds are insurmountable. In those moments, you must ask yourself why you became a lawyer in the first place." For a moment, silence enveloped the room as Alex contemplated her words. He remembered the pride he felt after graduating law school. The excitement of the first few days in court. The desire to make a difference in the world. But that dream felt distant now. Overshadowed by Victor's looming power. Integrity is your most valuable asset. Alex, she continued. Breaking the stillness. Many lawyers will bend their ethics for a paycheck. Especially in high-profile cases like this. But you must remember that justice is not determined by wealth or connections, it's grounded in fairness and truth. We must be vocal about our values. Even if it feels uncomfortable. Taking a deep breath. Alex nodded. Feeling inspired yet anxious. What if staying true to my principles costs me this case? He asked. Justice and morality should never be measured against a win or a loss. Emily replied. A resolve evident in her tone. What's more important is the impact we leave behind, the message we send to those watching. By standing firm, you teach others that integrity should never be compromised. Regardless of the temptations. Alex nodded slowly. Processing the depth of Emily's insights. Her wisdom and passion ignited a newfound determination within him. What should I do if I discover more about Victor's corruption? If it means jeopardizing my career, pursue the truth. No matter the consequences. Emily advised firmly. The law promises that everyone is innocent until proven guilty. But that doesn't mean we should ignore the stench of deceit. If you uncover wrongdoings, it's your ethical obligation to bring them to light. Don't hesitate. Encouraged. Alex felt his doubts slowly dissolve. The notion of being a mere pawn in Victor's game was unbearable. He wanted to uphold the values that had drawn him to the legal profession in the first place. Inspired by Emily's unwavering stance, he resolved to brave the storm ahead and fight for justice. No matter how formidable the adversary. As he rose to leave the office, Alex felt a fire rekindle within him. This was the moment to step beyond his fears, and embrace the struggle. With Emily's words echoing in his mind, he was ready to face Victor's empire of influence. Armed not with wealth or power, but with uncompromising integrity, and a quest for the truth. He knew then that this was not merely a case, it was a battle for the very essence of justice in society. Driven by purpose, Alex stepped out of the office, prepared to confront the challenges ahead. Buoyed by the knowledge that he was not just a lawyer but a steward of justice. As twilight draped over the city, Alex felt the weight of the world pressing heavily on his shoulders. Days turned into weeks as he pored over mountains of evidence in the law office late into the night. With Victor Langston's high-profile case looming, he was perpetually haunted by the spectre of justice. Wondering if he could truly make a difference. His gut told him that Victor was guilty. Yet the scales seemed inescapably tipped in favor of wealth and privilege. Just as weariness threatened to consume him. A phone call disrupted the silence of his office. The caller identified themselves as Jane, a former employee of Victor's company. Her voice trembled with nervousness at first. But soon the urgency clawed its way through the phone line. I have information that can change everything, she confessed. Her tone laced with fear, intrigued and apprehensive. Alex urged her to meet. They agreed on a secluded cafe, where shadows and whispers blended around them like secrets echoing in the air. Sitting across from her, Alex could sense her anxiety. She looked over her shoulder as if the shadows held the weight of Victor's influence. He's dangerous, she remarked, her eyes wide. But I can no longer live with what I know. He embezzled money for years. And I have the documents to prove it. Strangely enticed yet filled with caution, Alex handed her a cup of coffee. "Show me," he said softly, his heart racing. Jane pulled out a manila folder filled with bank statements, clandestine emails, and intricate webs of deceit captured in ink. As he sifted through the evidence, the sunlight filtered through the cafe window, illuminating the stark reality of Victor's crimes, each paper a thread in the tapestry of corruption that snared countless innocent lives. For years, I ignored what was happening under my nose. I feared losing my job and my safety, Jane confessed. But when I saw him slip through the fingers of justice, I couldn't keep silent. I have this. This is what he's afraid of. The supporting documents depicted not just financial misconduct but also the looming threat that paralyzed Jane's conscience. For the first time, Alex felt a surge of adrenaline. This evidence could spell victory in his battle against Victor, a chance for justice to emerge from the shadows. Yet, that very realization sent chills down his spine. The implications of exposing Victor would ripple beyond the courtroom, the repercussions could endanger his career and, more unsettlingly, Jane's safety. As they parted ways, a storm brewed in Alex's chest. Thoughts spun like autumn leaves caught in the wind. He had what he needed. Yet the stakes had escalated dangerously. The darkness enveloping Victor was claustrophobic, suffocating, and now dangerously close. In his car, parked outside the cafe, Alex couldn't shake off Jane's terrified face. He clutched the folder to his chest, a tangible embodiment of hope and peril intertwined. Each piece of evidence was not merely paper, it bore witness to lives lost under the weight of greed. That evening, Alex sat at his desk, the folder laid open in front of him. He wrestled with the moral quandary. With these documents, he was no longer just an attorney, he was a guardian of truth. But could he truly protect Jane if Victor retaliated? His heart pulsed with fervor as he considered his next steps. The battle would intensify, but so would his commitment to fight for justice. He felt renewed and steeled. Now the choice was not just about winning in court but about standing up affirmatively against the corruption and malpractice that loomed larger than life. Thus, the wheel of fate spun ever so strongly. Alex Harris was not just a man on a mission, he was now a beacon of hope, ready to face whatever darkness lay ahead. As the sun rose on the day of the trial, the atmosphere in the courtroom felt thick with anticipation. Alex arrived early, his pulse quickening at the thought of facing Victor Langston and his formidable legal team, those sharks that smelled blood in the water. He straightened his tie, took a deep breath, and reminded himself of the weight of the responsibility he bore. This case was not just about money, it was about integrity, morality, and the all-too-often blurred line between right and wrong. The courtroom buzzed with whispers of spectators and journalists seeking inside glimpses of the proceedings. Alex took his seat at the plaintiff's table, where the subdued hum of excitement powered his resolve. Emily sat beside him, her eyes sharp and focused. She squeezed his shoulder, offering silent encouragement. As the proceedings began, Victor glided into the courtroom with a confidence that seemed to overshadow the whole room. Clad in a tailored suit, he exuded an air of untouchability. His legal team, a troop of polished, experienced attorneys, radiated an aura of intimidation. Alex's heart sank momentarily. They had the expertise, the resources, and the connections to bury him if he faltered. But failure was not an option for Alex. He had prepared relentlessly, fueled by a fire that ignited the moment he decided to stand up for justice. The judge struck the gavel, calling the court to order, and the tension hung like a thick fog. The prosecution team presented their case first, a well-orchestrated performance that painted Victor as nothing less than a villain. Witness after witness corroborated the pattern of his deceit: financial records, emails, and testimony highlighted his cunning nature. Yet, whenever the evidence seemed overwhelming, Victor's team would introduce tactical distractions, sowing seeds of doubt in the jury's mind. After the prosecution wrapped up, it was time for the defense to take center stage. Victor's lead attorney, a senior figure known for his ruthless tactics, opened with a charismatic narrative, portraying Victor as an upstanding businessman whose success was merely a product of hard work and determination. The attorney's voice flowed like honey, captivating the jury and shifting their focus from Victor's alleged crimes to his philanthropic donations and community involvement. Alex felt the scales in the courtroom beginning to tip. He couldn't allow Victor to steer the narrative without challenge. As the defense laid out their case, Victor sat back, a sly grin creeping across his face as if he reveled in this theatrical spectacle. It chased a sense of anger down the length of Alex's spine. When it was finally Alex's turn to confront Victor directly, he took a deep breath. Drawing on the lessons imparted by Emily, he had to cut through the noise and expose the man behind the facade. Rising from his seat, he paced slowly before the jury, a calm determination propelling his steps. "Mr. Langston?" Alex began, his voice steady but laden with emotion. "Your campaign of deceit came not from a place of ambition but of greed. How many lives have you ruined in your relentless pursuit of money? How many employees lost their jobs because of your unethical practices? Your wealth does not absolve you of responsibility." As he pointed directly at Victor, he sensed a ripple of conviction washing over the spectators. Faces turned from affected, engaged, until his words struck home, igniting indignation. Alex felt the heat rise within him, compelling him to push further. "You can hide behind your wealth, but we will bring the truth to light. Justice is not blind, it can be clouded by power. But that doesn't mean we stop fighting for it." The courtroom fell silent, every ear tuned to the words vibrating in the air. In that moment, it was clear, the battle was heating up, and the stakes were higher than either side had anticipated. As the trial pressed onward, Alex's determination swelled. He had embarked on a fight against corruption, and he was not backing down. As the trial wore on, the tension in the courtroom reached a boiling point. Alex Harris felt the weight of the world on his shoulders, his heart pounding violently against his chest. With each passing day, it became increasingly evident that Victor Langston was not just a man of wealth, he was a puppet master orchestrating a grand performance to protect his empire. As the stakes rose, so did the pressure on Alex to deliver a compelling case against the affluent defendant. In the dimly lit courtroom, shadows flickered across the faces of the jury members as they listened intently to Victor's defense team. These seasoned lawyers were keenly aware of the nuances of the law, seamlessly manipulating each piece of evidence with a precision that made Alex's stomach churn. Their arguments painted Victor not as a villain, but as a misunderstood businessman caught in the crosshairs of economic turmoil. The narrative spun by the defense was so expertly crafted that it left many jurors questioning the authenticity of Alex's claims. Alex's inner turmoil deepened as he watched Victor Machiavellianously charm the courtroom, his confident smirk radiating the arrogance of privilege. How could someone so clearly corrupt command such loyalty and admiration? Doubt began to creep into Alex's mind, insidiously whispering that perhaps he was fighting a battle he could not win. The pressure was becoming suffocating as the realization washed over him. Every argument he presented could crumble under the weight of Langston's wealth and influence. Late one evening, feeling drained and desperate for guidance, Alex sought solace in Emily Foster's office. The walls adorned with accolades and certificates bore witness to her years of hard work. And as he entered, he found her carefully reviewing case files under a soft lamp's glow. Emily's formidable intelligence and unwavering dedication had always inspired Alex. But tonight, he needed more than inspiration. "Emily? I feel like I'm fighting an uphill battle," Alex confessed, frustration lacing his voice. "It's as if the truth and justice are lost on everyone in that room. How can I make them see Victor for what he truly is?" Emily looked up, her expression reflective yet firm. "You must remember, Alex. The legal system isn't just a game of evidence and facts. It's a game of perception. You need to reframe the narrative." She emphasized the importance of presenting Victor not just as a defendant but as a symbol of the systemic corruption that permeates society. With renewed determination, Alex dove into a deep analysis of the case, dissecting Victor's past, from the beginnings of his shady business practices to the lengths he would go to maintain his empire. Yet, the deeper Alex dug, the more personal the stakes became. Threatening messages began to surface, warning him to back off or face the consequences. The insidious nature of Victor's power revealed itself, intimidation tactics that made Alex fear for both his career and safety. Faced with this chilling reality, Alex resolved to stand his ground. Pushing aside the shadows of doubt that threatened to overshadow his resolve, he would not allow himself to be silenced. But the pressure was mounting. And as the trial continued, he wrestled with the question, could he truly expose Victor for who he was before the opportunity slipped away? With each passing day, Alex battled not just the powerful defense, but the shadows in his own heart, refusing to let fear dictate his actions. In the world of legal warfare, he knew that sometimes the fight for truth was as grueling as it was glorious. And he was determined to emerge on the other side, ready to reclaim justice. The tension in the courtroom was palpable, the air thick with anticipation as the moment of reckoning finally arrived. Alex Harris stood before the jury, his hands slightly trembling as he clutched his notes. This was it, the culmination of weeks of relentless preparation. Late nights filled with legal textbooks, and fervent discussions with his mentor, Emily Foster. The fate of justice hung in the balance, and he knew he had to rise to the occasion. Taking a deep breath, Alex began his closing argument, his voice steady yet impassioned. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he addressed them, eyeing each member with intensity, "we have heard the evidence. We have seen the greed and manipulation that have plagued this case. Victor Langston may wear the facade of a respected businessman, but underneath lies a man who has betrayed the trust of so many for his own gain." Each word he spoke felt like a drumbeat echoing in the vast expanse of the courtroom. He recalled the testimonies of the whistleblower and victims, detailed accounts of stolen funds, and lives affected by Victor's greed. He emphasized the moral responsibility that rested on their shoulders, the opportunity to stand against a man who believed he was above the law. As he spoke, Victor's legal team shifted uncomfortably, whispering to one another, their once confident facade cracking under the weight of Alex's convictions. They had relied heavily on their client's wealth and influence. But here stood a young lawyer, embodying the very essence of justice. Midway through his argument, Alex sensed the jury's engagement, their heads nodding subtly as he passionately laid out the implications of their decision. "Justice," he continued, "is not merely about punishment, it's about sending a message. It's about letting the world know that no one, no matter how powerful, can escape accountability for their actions. Suddenly, Victor's defense attorney sprang to his feet, interrupting Alex with an air of desperation. "Objection. Your Honor. The prosecution is playing on the emotions of the jury instead of sticking to the facts," he exclaimed. The judge, a stern figure encased in years of legal experience, regarded the outburst coolly. "Overruled," he replied, allowing Alex to continue. Fueled by the moment, Alex amplified his efforts. He recounted how Victor had exploited his position, detailing specific instances of fraudulent activity. With each evidence presented, he dismantled the smokescreen Victor's team had worked tirelessly to maintain. It was as if the courtroom itself held its breath, collectively leaning in, waiting for the resolution that would define this moment. In the corner, Victor's countenance darkened, the cracks in his demeanor now evident. No longer the charming businessman. He appeared desperate, realizing his facade was crumbling. Alex took note of the shift in dynamics. This battle was personal, but it was also about reforming a system. As he delivered his final appeal, Alex's voice resonated with unwavering conviction. "The verdict you reached today is not just about Victor Langston, it is about setting a precedent. It is about reaffirming our faith in a legal system that should be blind to wealth and status. Let justice be real. Let it prevail." As he finished, silence enveloped the room. The jury gazed thoughtfully, their faces a blend of contemplation and determination. Alex stepped back, his heart pounding as he realized the delicate balance between truth and deception rested in their hands, an outcome that could either strengthen or shatter the spirit of justice. The judge called for a brief recess, but the weight of the moment lingered in the air. In this defining chapter, Alex understood that regardless of the verdict, his journey had already begun to embody the essence of change, illuminating the path of justice for others to follow. The atmosphere in the courtroom was electric, yet heavy with tension. After days of riveting testimonies and impassioned arguments, the moment of truth had finally arrived. Alex stood at the front of the courtroom, his heart pounding with anticipation as he prepared to hear the jury's verdict. He glanced at Emily, who sat in the gallery with a look of quiet determination, silently urging him to remain strong in the face of uncertainty. As the foreman rose to announce the decision, Alex felt a whirlwind of emotions, the hope for justice, the fear of disappointment, and the unshakable burden of responsibility weighed heavily on his shoulders. The air was thick with expectation. The eyes of the gallery, including Victor Langston's sharp gaze, fixed intently on the foreman, who cleared his throat and began to speak. In the case of the state versus Victor Langston, we find the defendant. The foreman paused dramatically, and the world seemed to stand still. Not guilty of embezzlement. A collective gasp echoed through the courtroom. Alex felt his heart drop as the words crashed over him like a tidal wave, pulling him into despair. Victor's lips curved into a smug smile, the faintest sign of victory piercing through the heavy atmosphere. Alex's dream of achieving justice for the whistleblower and all those wronged by Victor's machinations faded into shadows. As the jury filed out, murmurs erupted throughout the courtroom. Many spectators, including some law students, exchanged incredulous looks. Some shook their heads in disbelief, others seemed oddly satisfied, perhaps unaware of the moral implications that had been swept under the rug. Alex's thoughts raced, a whirlwind of questions and frustration. How could this happen? How could money and influence overshadow the irrefutable evidence presented in the courtroom? After the court adjourned, Alex found himself outside on the courthouse steps. The cool air a stark contrast to the heat of emotion inside. Emily joined him. Her expression one of empathy but also steely resolve. "How are you holding up?" she asked, gently, placing a hand on his shoulder. I feel defeated," Alex admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I fought hard. But it wasn't enough. The system is rigged." And the truth got lost amidst the wealth and power of Victor Langston. Emily nodded, her eyes reflecting a mixture of understanding and fierce conviction. "You mustn't lose hope, Alex. This is only one battle. Justice takes time. And sometimes it feels far away. But you have planted the seeds of awareness. People are now questioning this verdict, they are beginning to see the cracks in the system." As they spoke, Alex noticed a group of onlookers forming near Victor. Whispers of congratulations and laughter drifted to his ears, as if celebrating a game won. Oblivious to the true cost of this so-called victory, it infuriated him further and fueled his desire for change. "Maybe it's time we do something about it," Alex declared, a newfound determination igniting within him. "Maybe it's time to fight not just in the courtroom but outside of it. To raise awareness about the injustices lurking beneath the surface. We need to advocate for change." Emily smiled, a spark in her eyes. "That's the spirit. Alex. You've learned a crucial lesson today. The road ahead won't be easy. But as long as we have people like you willing to fight for what's right, hope remains alive." As they walked away from the courthouse, the sun dipped low in the sky, casting a warm glow over the city. Though the verdict had stung, it had also awakened a resolve within Alex, a promise to continue the fight for justice. Not just for Victor Langston, but for every voice that had been silenced. Together, he and Emily would tackle the challenges ahead, lighting the way for change in a system that desperately needed it. This chapter ended not with closure but with a new beginning, a commitment to confront the intertwining realities of privilege and justice. One step at a time. As the gavel struck, signaling the end of the trial, the courtroom erupted into a den of mixed emotions. Alex Harris sat in stunned silence, his heart heavy with the bittersweet weight of the verdict. The jury had spoken, but the outcome felt painfully unjust. Victor Langston, the man accused of manipulating the system for his financial gain, would face only a token sentence, a mere slap on the wrist for the enormity of his crimes. What had begun as a beacon of hope for righting wrongs now felt like a bitter defeat. In the chaos of whispers and murmurs that followed the verdict, Alex found himself lost in deep contemplation. He looked around the courtroom, observing the faces of the jury, his colleagues, and even Victor's smug smile as he received a light reprimand that would allow him to resume his lavish lifestyle. Had they truly weighed the facts impartially? Or had the allure of privilege clouded their judgment? Emily Foster, seated beside Alex, gently placed her hand on his shoulder, her eyes filled with understanding. "It's a hard pill to swallow," she said quietly. "This is the reality of our justice system. It's not always about the truth, sometimes. It's about who can afford to fight harder." Alex could feel the sting of her words, they echoed in his mind. "But what about the ones who can't afford to fight?" he replied, his voice laced with frustration. "What's the point of justice if it's just a game of wealth and power?" Emily sighed, her expression somber yet reassuring. "The fight for justice extends beyond this courtroom. You have a responsibility, Alex. To be a voice for the voiceless. Change doesn't happen in an instant. It requires persistence, conviction, and sometimes even heartbreak. As Alex absorbed her words, a flicker of determination sparked within him. He had entered the legal world with the dream of making a difference, to challenge the very flaws that he now witnessed so painfully. He thought of the whistleblower who had risked everything to come forward. And he knew there were many more out there, countless individuals caught in the crosshairs of a flawed system. Taking a deep breath, Alex stood up, his gaze shifting to the front of the courtroom where Victor was basking in the applause of his well-heeled supporters. Realization washed over him like a wave: the fight was far from over. If he could not achieve justice for Victor's victims in this trial, he would dedicate himself to the bigger battle ahead. He would write, advocate, and raise awareness about the inefficiencies of the legal system, using every skill and connection to ignite change. As the spectators filed out, Alex felt a surge of resolve. "I won't back down," he murmured under his breath. "This isn't the end, it's just the beginning." He exchanged a knowing glance with Emily, who nodded in agreement. Together, they would continue to challenge the status quo, shedding light on the shadows of injustice. As the camera panned out, the story of Alex and Victor was but a single chapter in a much larger narrative, one filled with stories of struggle, resilience, and the unwavering hope for a fair and just society. They had lost a crucial battle, but the war was alive and well, fueled by advocates like Alex who dared to stand up against the tide of privilege and power. Thank you for joining us today. Until next time, keep questioning and seeking justice in your lives. The closing remark hung in the air, a rallying cry for viewers to become part of the movement toward ethical rectitude in an often unjust world.